Well, good morning. It's Monday morning, and here we are. It's The Take. I'm Pete Najarian for Market Rebellion. I'll tell you, it's been a wild ride. We talked about last week. We talked about volatility. Well, we got volatility. We lost it towards the end of the week, but we certainly had a nice big movement of volatility throughout the week last week. You look at the Dow as we closed out the week, and I'll tell you what, Dow today hitting new highs, and last week it actually that was part of the boost higher as well. When we look to Friday, the market started off strong. Dow started off pretty nicely. It spiked in the first hour or so. It held on, accelerated into the close, and finished up 230 points. NASDAQ, on the other hand, started off in the red, which we've seen before. And we talked about this dislocation. That was in the red while you're looking at the Dow in the green. And that flipped around a little bit, actually. The NASDAQ started to move to the upside. We had a nice move to the triple digits and actually finished up 120 points there as well. So really started to see both participate, and that dislocation kind of moved itself back into the two of them working up together, and a pretty nice solid close for the week. There's no doubt about that. We had volatility, as I mentioned. We were up into the 21s. We actually finished the week closer towards those lower 17s, which was a pretty sharp drop on Friday. A leadership for sure that absolutely was the outright leader and has been on many occasions energy. And energy finished up nearly 2% to the upside, a nice solid move once again. Every single sector finished in the green. So that was something that was pretty impressive as well. So energy, industrials, you had materials, all leading to the upside. And when you look at those various areas, look at Freeport-McMoRan. This thing has been absolutely on fire. Another 4.5% move just this past Friday. And so that has been something that we've been talking about. We've been talking about copper. We've talked about lumber. We've talked about housing. We've talked about all of this on the reopening and how that has been affecting the material space and the energy space. And we've talked about the price of oil and where it's come from November to now. And it's just been an extraordinary run. I'll tell you what, when you look in that space and you look at materials, how about the move that we got on Friday again in US steel? It's just never ending, it almost feels like. A nice, powerful move, about 8% or thereabouts to the upside. A really, really strong move. And we're continuing to see some of this kind of activity as we get into today. But I also wanted to touch on just, again, those big beta names. And when we talk about energy, take a look at what EOG did on Friday. That was up about 8%. You had Devon Energy, you had all of these various names, but EOG really did stand out. We hadn't talked about that name in quite a while. We've talked about many of the other names, but certainly there is a lot of various names within the energy space that we call the beta space, where we are seeing just extraordinary moves to the upside as the price of oil has been hanging very, very close to that 65 level. So 40.5 million contracts, not a bad day. Another big monstrous day, recapturing that 40 million plus sort of area. And Tesla, about 1.5 million contracts. And then you look over at Apple, it was about 1.4 million contracts. So a really, really solid performance, but a broad performance as well. It wasn't just a couple of names. There was many, many names that were spread across many, many sectors. And as I said, every sector finishing in the green last week on Friday. So you come in today, you kick off on Monday, and you're starting to look, and there's, again, this dislocation we've talked about, and it continues at least so far into the day. Pre-market, the Dow was up about 120, then it was 170. You get early on, it's up 200 points. 9 a.m., it's up 230 or 40 points. And the last I looked, it was up about 200 points, but we were starting to see a little bit of a drop. We were looking at the S&P as well, as that was pushing into negative territory, being influenced by what? Well, the dislocation of the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ started off down just about 45 points, no big deal. Down about 100 points, not really all that big of a deal. You get early into the trading session, down about 150 points, you start to scratch your head a little bit. And then as we got towards the first half hour, 9 o'clock Central Time, down about 190 points, then down about 200 points. As a matter of fact, I'll take a quick, brief look right now. Down about 200 points there. The Dow still up about 189 points. So still a major dislocation in terms of seeing the Dow just to continue to hold on to a very, very nice gain as we're looking at a pretty sharp sell-off in the NASDAQ. So that stands out. Where's the weakness? Well, technology, not so great. But then specifically, you look at the semiconductors, absolutely getting throttled today. Last I looked, they were down at least 2.5%, might be a little bit more by now. Biotech was down about 2%. We had the tech stocks themselves, they were down about a little over one and maybe 1.25%, something like that. So that was certainly what was influencing that big, powerful move to the downside on the NASDAQ. Now, the leadership role, however, has been in energy, it's been materials and financials. And so far, holding on to some of those gains, the big majority of those gains. Matter of fact, financials were up about 1%. We had materials up about 1.25%, something like that. But it's the chips that have been getting absolutely slammed. I already mentioned the semiconductors, but names like Qorvo, names like Skyworks, those names absolutely getting just smacked to the downside. And these were the darlings for a long period of time, but getting hit pretty hard today. There's no doubt about it. Now, Chinese names. There's a whole bunch of Chinese names that seem to be getting hit to the downside pretty hard. Trip.com, that's one of them. JD, another one, getting slammed. I looked at this PDD, this Pinduoduo, now, however you want to pronounce it, but it's getting slammed as well. This stock was down about 6%, then about 8%. Last I looked, it was down about 12%. Gives you a little bit of an idea when I talk about some of these Chinese names getting slammed. Well, they certainly are getting hit to the downside. On the other hand, we talked about energy. I'm looking at what really stood out for me, at least early on, is I've been really focused on these beta names. And I think for all the right reasons, because they have been moving 4%, 5%, 6%, 8%. I mean, we've seen some monstrous moves, but the solid move that we continue to see out of Chevron really does stand out for me, CVX, and that's 52-week highs today, up about 2% today. So really having some great performance to the upside. And yes, there's been, as I said, just like with the XOP and many of these beta names, there are some pulls to the downside, no doubt about it. But the general move to the upside, take a look at CVX as a matter of fact, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Chevron started the year at 86. Here we are today trading 112. That's a pretty substantial move for that type of size of an entity. And so certainly I think that's worth pointing out, and a Dow stock. So certainly worth pointing out. Sticking with that, I mean, I hit the unusual, and boy, sticking with energy a little bit. Another one of the big monsters. How about Exxon Mobil? We're seeing that one having some huge buyers in there. Stock was trading around 63.80. We had a nice almost 8,000 of the May 14th, that's Friday, the 14th, the 64 strike calls. Now, those were going for about 30 cents up to about 65 cents at the time that this stock started a little bit lower, but then finished up close to 63.80. So I thought that one really stood out for me because we're talking about energy. We've been talking about this continuous path to the upside. It doesn't look like folks are expecting that to stop anytime soon, because certainly we see, at least for this week, we see some bullish buying there in XOM, and we've seen some of that over the past couple of weeks. Some of the energy plays, some very, very big option paper coming into a lot of those beta names, but also we are seeing some of that coming into names like Exxon as well. Boeing is my next one. So that's number two. Boeing, I'll tell you what, we talk about a lot of different areas in the markets. The industrials have certainly had a great run to the upside. Boeing has had its ups and downs, and mostly ups, quite frankly, but stock trading just beneath 240, okay? And they are buying, again, these are expiring this week, so we're going back to all this very, very short-term, short-dated options, but these are right on top of where the stock is, because they're buying the May 14th expiring 240 calls. As I said, stock was just beneath that. It was 239.20 at the time. They were started when they initially started buying, the options were about $2. They paid all the way up to just under about $4 for these options. Now, these have got to make a move. The stock's right there, but it still has to make a move, and a sharp move to the upside for these to pay off. So just always keep that in mind. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, it's called theta, it's time premium. And you really want to understand that. You want to understand all of the ins and outs of the derivatives markets, Market Rebellion. We've got some of the very best there are out there in terms of educating people. I want you to understand that. And as I said, 40 million contracts on Friday. We're looking like we're starting off with a pretty busy day today as well. I will look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. I've got the halftime and fast money. So doing a double animal style, as I like to call it, tomorrow, doing both shows, the noon and the 5 Eastern time. Look forward to that. But I will see you here tomorrow, and excited to see you at 10:30 Eastern time as well. Folks, have a great day at trading.